The city was unusually quiet that night. The neon lights outside flickered against the back windows of Jungkook's sleek black car, casting fractured shadows across the empty pavement. You pulled your coat tighter around yourself, the cold air biting at your skin as you stepped out of the building. Your heels clicked against the stone walkway, a sound that felt almost too loud in the heavy silence of the street. There he was. Jungkook leaned casually against the driver's side, his tall figure dressed in his signature dark suit. His posture was composed, his expression unreadable, as though the late hour meant nothing to him. His gaze shifted toward you the moment you appeared, sharp and steady like a hawk taking note of its surroundings. He didn't move forward to greet you, didn't ask if you were tired, didn't offer the kind of warmth a husband usually would. Instead, his voice, deep and controlled, broke through the night. Next time, don't make me wait this long. No anger, no concern, just a plain statement. Laced with that cold authority he carried everywhere he went. He raised an eyebrow, trying to mask the slight sting of his words. Of course, you thought not a single "are you alright" or even a smile, just that. You make it sound as if I kept you waiting on purpose. The meeting ran late. He didn't respond immediately. He only opened the car door for you, his movements precise, almost mechanical. You slide inside, sighing softly at his silence. And then, as you adjusted yourself in the leather seat, your hand brushed against something soft. A neatly folded blanket lay waiting on your side. For a moment, you froze. You hadn't placed it there. Your lips parted slightly, a quiet realization dawning. He had thought about you, about the weather, about the hour, about the way your shoulders always tensed in the cold. But of course, Shunga would never say that. He slipped into the driver's seat, his profile stern as he started the engine. The low hum of the car filled the silence between you. You could have just said you were worried. You turned your head toward him, hoping just a flicker that he might soften, even if just for a heartbeat. But his jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the road. I don't waste words when actions are enough. You pressed your lips together, caught between irritation and the tiniest flutter in your chest. It was infuriating. How he could care in such a cold, inflexible way, never allowing you the comfort of gentleness. The ride continued in silence, though you couldn't stop glancing at the blanket now draped over your lap. His world was made of walls, yet somehow, in the smallest of ways, he let you see through the cracks. The mansion was quiet, filled only with the soft clinking of cutlery as you sat at the long dining table. A plate of food rested in front of you untouched. Your appetite had been fickle lately. You told yourself it was stress, exhaustion, or maybe just the emptiness of a marriage that felt more like a contract than companionship. But Jungkook noticed. He always noticed. Across the table, he cut his steak with surgical precision, his gaze never once rising toward you. Yet, in that stillness, he caught every small detail, the way your fork didn't move, the faint sigh that escaped your lips, the absence staring to your plate. Without looking at you, his voice slipped into the room, calm, cold, but leaving no room for defiance. Eat. You blinked, lifted your eyes to him. I'm not that hungry. He finally looked at you, his dark eyes steady, sharp, enough to pin you in place. You have skipped enough meals this week. Don't make me repeat myself. You wanted to argue, to roll your eyes, to say you don't get to order me around like I'm a child. But something in the way of his tone told you it wasn't simply about authority, it was about concern, disguised in his usual armor of command. Reluctantly, you lifted your fork and took a small bite. He didn't say anything more, just returned to his own plate with the same rigid calmness. Yet the corner of his mouth relaxed almost imperceptibly, as if satisfied that you had listened. Later that evening, another scene unfolded, a subtler one, yet more revealing. You were curled up in the lounge, trying to warm yourself with the fireplace when the maid brought you tea. The tray clattered slightly, and when the cup landed on the table, you immediately noticed it wasn't your usual jasmine blend. The faint frown that touched your lips didn't go unnoticed by him. From across the room, Jungkook's voice cut sharply. Since when do you serve without checking her preference? The maid froze, stammering an apology, her hands trembling as she bowed. You shifted uncomfortably, ready to intervene. It's fine, Jungkook. It's just tea. His gaze flicked to you briefly, unreadable before returning to the maid. I don't like incompetence. Don't repeat it. The maid scurried away, leaving behind the faint scent of nurse and tea leaves. You stared at him, eyebrows raised. You could have just asked her to bring another cup. No need to terrify the poor woman. He leaned back against the arm of the sofa, his expression as unyielding as ever. If they can't handle simple tasks, they don't belong here. You narrowed your eyes at him, half amused, half annoyed. Admit it, you just noticed I wasn't pleased, and this was your way of what protecting my tea. A flicker of silence stretched between you. His gaze lingered on you for a second too long before he looked away, his voice dropping into that familiar cold timbre. Don't overthink, it was nothing. But as you reached for the fresh cup later, Jasmine's gentle aroma rising into the air, you couldn't help the small smile tugging at your lips. Nothing or everything. With Jungkook, the line was always blurred. After a week, the bathroom felt colder than usual, the faint hum of the vent echoing in the silence. You sat on the edge of the bathtub, your trembling fingers clutching the small stick in your hands, two lines clear, unmistakable. Your breath caught in your throat. Pregnant, the word rang in your head like church bells, both terrifying and miraculous. A storm of emotion rose within you, your chest swelling with a fragile, dangerous kind of joy, only to be immediately drowned by fear. Your first thought wasn't the child, it wasn't even yourself, it was him, Jungkook. Your husband, with his cold eyes and guarded silences, with the way he fulfilled every duty yet never lured you into the fortress of his heart. Would he accept this child? Or would this innocent life become just another weight in a marriage that already balanced on glass? And then came the shadow you hated most, the name you had never dared to speak aloud in his presence, Hannah. Her face flashed in your mind, graceful, confident, radiant. You remembered the university halls where you once saw her walking at Jungkook's side. You remembered how she laughed, how his stoic features softened ever so slightly when she was near. Everyone knew they were inseparable back then. Everyone thought she would be the one standing where you stood now. The thought twisted your stomach. What if, despite everything, his heart still beat for her? What if he looked at your child and only saw the shadow of the woman he lost? Your fingers tightened around the test until your knuckles ached. A part of you wanted to run to him, to tell him, to see his reaction, but the louder part, the frightened, insecure part, kept whispering, don't. He won't want this. He won't want you. So you decided to keep it to yourself. You learned to hide the morning sickness, forcing a smile at breakfast, and claiming you were not hungry. You made excuses for your sudden fatigue, saying work had drained you. Every night when Jungkook returned from his late meetings, you had slipped under the covers quickly, pretending to be asleep, guarding your secret like a thief. And yet the secret weighed heavier with each passing day. Sometimes, when his eyes lingered on you a second too long, you wondered if he already knew. His gaze was sharp enough to see through lies, to stripe away masks, but he never asked, he never said a word. You told yourself it was better this way for now, better to protect your fragile heart from the possibility of rejection, better to pretend, at least for a little longer, that your child was safe in the shadows. But deep down, you knew Jungkook's silence was not ignorance, it was patience, and patience with him was always a dangerous thing. The next day, the doctor's voice drifted faintly through the half open door of your room, calm yet clear enough to shatter your fragile wall of secrecy. Yes, Mrs. Jones, but remember your pregnancy will need close monitoring, especially during the first trimester. Avoid stress. The words hung in the air like smoke, and in that same silence you felt it. The weight of someone's presence at the threshold. You turned, heart freezing. Jungkook stood there, tall, immovable, dressed in his crisp black suit, his hand still on the door frame. His eyes dark, unreadable, fixed on you with a quiet intensity that made your stomach drop. He hadn't stormed in, hadn't demanded an explanation. He simply stood there, the quiet storm you always feared. The doctor excused herself quickly, sensing the tension, leaving the two of you in suffocating silence. He took a slow step forward, his voice low and sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Tell me, Wine, since when have you carried my child and chosen to keep me blind? Your throat tightened, words lodging painfully behind your lips. His tone wasn't angry, no raised voice, no explosive fury. It was worse. Cold disappointment, the kind that made your chest ache more than shouting ever could. He tried to speak, but the silence stretched, his gaze piercing straight through you. Finally, the dam broke. I didn't mean to hide it. I was going to tell you eventually. I just. Your hands twisted nervously in your lap, your body trembling as tears pricked at your eyes. He stood there, expression unreadable, every second of silence pressing harder against your chest. I was afraid, Jungkook, afraid of what you would say, afraid that you wouldn't want this baby, afraid that maybe your heart is still with Hannah. The name slipped out, fragile and heavy at once. His eyes flickered just for a heartbeat. You caught it. The subtle tightening of his jaw, the cold steel hardening in his gaze, but he didn't speak, and the weight of his silence made your confession spell faster. You and I, we were never loved, Jungkook, not the way you had with her. I remember university. I saw the way you looked at Hannah, the way everyone thought she would be the one standing here, not me. So when I found out, when I realized I was carrying a child, I panicked. I thought maybe you would see this baby as a burden, or worse, as a reminder of what you lost. Your voice cracked, your tears finally breaking free as you pressed a trembling hand against your chest. I didn't want to face your rejection. I didn't want our child to be unwanted, even before it came into this world. So I thought if I kept it to myself, at least for a little while, I could protect that hope, even if it was selfish. The room was heavy, the silence almost suffocating. Jungkook stood still, every line of his face carved in stone, every flicker of emotion buried deep behind the coldness he wore like armor. You dared to meet his gaze, your voice breaking on the last whisper. I'm sorry, I just didn't want to lose what little place I have in your life. For a long moment, nothing moved, just the faint ticking of the clock and your ragged breaths filling the emptiness. And then finally his hand moved. Slowly, deliberately, Chunguk reached out, placing his palm beneath your chin, tilting your tear-streaked face up toward him. His eyes were still cold, still unreadable, but something flickered deep within them, something you couldn't yet name. You think so little of me, Vine. The disappointment in his tone was sharper than any anger could ever be. The silence stretched between you like a taut thread ready to snap. His thumb lingered beneath your chin, keeping your tearful gaze locked to his. His voice, when it came, was low and controlled, yet carrying a weight that pressed straight into your chest. I don't tolerate lies, Vine. Your breath hissed. His words were sharp, but they were not laced with fury. Instead, they carried something else, something heavier, deeper. His eyes lingered on your face as though memorizing every trembling line of it. But you're mine, and so is this child. That will never change, never keep me in the shadows again. The way he said mine was not gentle nor romantic, it was absolute, unquestionable, a wow and a warning in one. His hand shifted, brushing away a stray tear from your cheek, though his touch was restrained, almost hesitant, as if unfamiliar with such tenderness. You swallowed hard, noting your voice breaking under the weight of relief and fear. I promise I won't hide anything again. His gaze softened by affection, the eyes cracking just enough to let the smallest sliver of warmth through. From that night on, something changed. He didn't transform into a different man. He was still cold, still unbearable, still Jungkook. But his care began to seep through in ways you couldn't ignore anymore. At your first doctor's appointment after the revelation, he was there, silent, sitting beside you in his immaculately tailored suit, his hand resting on his knees. He didn't say a word, didn't ask unnecessary questions. But when the doctor asked if you had support at home, Jungkook's hand slid over yours on the armrest, firm, steady, protective. She has everything she needs. The doctor smiled politely, unaware of the storm that raged quietly in his dark eyes, but you felt it. His grip lingered, grounding you, as though silently reminding you that you were not carrying this alone. At home, his changes were even more startling. When you reached for the heavy kettle in the kitchen one morning, his voice cut across the room. Leave it, I'll handle it. You blinked at him in disbelief. Since when does John Jungkook pour tea? Since my wife forgot she's carrying my child and thinks she can lift things she shouldn't. You almost laughed at the bluntness of it. But the way he carefully poured your tea, placing it before you without another word, made you just ache with something warmer than amusement. At night, you begin noticing even more the way he adjusted the pillows behind you when you lay down, pretending it was nothing, the way he lingered at the doorway after taking you in, as if making sure you truly slept peacefully. And one night, you woke in the middle of the dark, turning slightly to find him still awake. His chair was angled toward the bed, his elbows resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on you with an intensity that startled you. He didn't move when your eyes fluttered open. He didn't look away, didn't disguise the rare vulnerability etched into his face. For once, the cold mask slipped completely, and you saw him not the mafia king, not the unyielding husband, but a man watching his work in the form of you and the child within you. Your lips parted softly. You are staring, a pause, then his voice, low and honest in the stillness of night. I can't afford to lose what's mine. Your heart tightened, and you realized this was his way of loving. It wasn't gentle words or easy warmth. It was vigilance. It was presence. It was care so fierce it bled through the cracks of his cold armor. And slowly, against all odds, it began to feel enough. Pregnancy changed many things, not just for you, but for Jungkook. He had always been protective in his own silent, watchful way, but now that you were carrying his child, that protectiveness transformed into something fiercer. It was no longer just subtle gear, it was possession. One evening, you accompanied him to a formal gathering. A sea of powerful men and women filled the grand hall. Laughter and polite conversation rippling through the air. You wore a flowing gown that clung lightly to your frame, hiding the small swell of your stomach that only you and Jungkook truly noticed. But Jungkook noticed everything. The moment another man, a business associate, bold enough to forget his place, let his eye linger too long on you, Jungkook's demeanor shifted. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't cause a scene. Instead, he moved closer, his hand sliding around your waist with quiet finality, pulling you against his side. His dark gaze locked on the man, sharp and dangerous. Eyes off, she's mine. The man paled instantly, muttering apologize before slipping away into the crowd. You glanced up at Jungkook, half exasperated, half flustered. You didn't have to scare him like that. His eyes flickered down to you, unreadable but intense. If anyone thinks they can look at what belongs to me, they deserve worse than fear. You open your mouth to argue, but the firmness of his grip silenced you. For all his coldness, his touch was steady, protective in a way that both comforted and unnerved you. At home, his possessiveness took different forms. When you tried to walk around the garden alone, he appeared behind you like a shadow. Don't wander without me. I'm just walking, Jungkook, not running a marathon. His jaw flexed. The world doesn't need to know you are vulnerable, not while you're carrying my higher. The way he said it, my higher sent yours through you. It was pride, yes, but also a vow, an unspoken promise that nothing would touch neither of you. Even in the smallest things, he grew unyielding. When you reached for anything heavy, his hand intercepted. When you tried to attend meetings or host small gatherings, he cut them short if he sensed you were tired. One evening, frustrated, you finally confronted him. You can't keep caging me like this. I'm pregnant, Jungkook, not fragile glass. He stepped closer, his gaze piercing, his tone cold but laced with something raw. You are glass to me, and I'll shatter the hands of anyone who tries to touch you. Your breath caught. His words were blunt, possessive, yet the intensity in his eyes betrayed more than obsession, it betrayed fear. Fear of losing you, fear of losing the child, and in that moment, for the first time, you realized his coldness wasn't distance anymore. It was his way of holding on.